25. Best cottage garden flowers, and which ones are easy care. Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Earthly Delights, where soil meets soul, and every bloom has a story to tell. If you're watching this, I already know something about you. You're the kind of person who slows down to admire the curve of a petal, who smiles at the hum of bees drifting between blossoms, who longs for a garden space that feels alive, abundant, and a little bit magical. Maybe you've struggled with plants that seem too fussy, or perhaps you've wished for a garden that thrives even when life gets busy. You might be caring for a tiny balcony filled with pots, or maybe you're dreaming of borders overflowing with color in a backyard space. Wherever you are on your gardening journey, you belong here. Today we're stepping into the world of cottage gardens, those wild, romantic, and utterly enchanting spaces that seem to grow more beautiful with each passing season. These gardens aren't about perfection. They're about resilience and creating a place that welcomes both people and pollinators alike. In this video, we'll explore 25 of the very best cottage garden flowers, and I'll share which ones are easy care, perfect for busy gardeners who still want that timeless beauty. So if you're ready to transform your space into a living patchwork of color and fragrance, stay tuned. And before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an Earthly Delights journey into the world of green. Part 1. The spirit of a cottage garden. Cottage gardens aren't bound by rigid rules. They're living tapestries of flowers, fragrance, and freedom. Some are painted in soft pastels, others burst with riotous color, but all share the same heart. A place where beauty, usefulness, and wildlife come together. At their core, cottage gardens are about joy, sharing, and nature's gentle abundance. 1. Hardy geraniums, the true survivors. If there's one flower I'd recommend to every cottage gardener, it's the hardy geranium. Not to be confused with the tender pelargoniums often sold in pots. Hardy geraniums are perennials that return year after year with almost no fuss. They weave themselves gracefully through borders, offering months of cheerful blooms in pinks, blues, and purples. Some varieties spill over rocks and pathways, while others make excellent ground cover, suppressing weeds naturally. What makes them so beloved is their resilience. Whether your summers are scorching or your winters are biting cold, hardy geraniums seem to adapt and keep going. They're also adored by pollinators, which means every blossom becomes a tiny invitation for bees and butterflies. Best of all, their only real care is an annual cutback, after which many reward you with fresh foliage and a second flush of flowers. For gardeners with busy lives or little patience for fussy plants, hardy geraniums are a gift that keeps giving. 2. Catmint, Nepeta, the low-maintenance lavender cousin. Catmint is one of those plants that feels almost too good to be true. With its soft gray-green foliage and clouds of lilac or blue flowers, it creates a dreamy haze along paths and borders, much like lavender, but with far fewer demands. Unlike lavender, catmint doesn't mind if your soil is a little heavier or if the weather shifts unpredictably. It's deer-resistant, slug-resistant, and remarkably drought-tolerant once established, which makes it a lifesaver for gardeners who don't always have time to water or fuss. And if you've struggled with plants that sulk when conditions aren't perfect, catmint will be a breath of fresh air. Pollinators adore it, bees flock to its blooms, and even when the flowers fade, its fragrant foliage remains attractive. The only potential risk is that local cats may find it irresistible. But for most gardeners, that's just part of its charm. Plant it in drifts for a billowing, romantic effect, and you'll see why cottage gardens can't resist this reliable beauty. Part 2. Easy care classics you'll love forever. A true cottage garden isn't just about charm, it's about resilience. These are the flowers that thrive with little effort, rewarding even the busiest gardener with months of color and joy. They're the backbone of a timeless garden, tough, forgiving, and endlessly giving, no matter your soil, space, or schedule. 3. Globe thistle, Echinops, the sculptor of the garden. If you want a plant that brings structure as well as beauty, globe thistle is your steadfast friend. With its striking silver-gray foliage and perfectly round, spiky blue blooms, it looks like a living sculpture planted right in your border. Once established, Globe thistles are practically indestructible, drought-tolerant, pest-resistant, and able to handle poor soils without complaint. Bees absolutely adore them, often crowding the blossoms in midsummer when nectar is scarce elsewhere. And when the flowers fade, their seed heads remain a source of food for birds through autumn and winter. Unlike many plants that beg for attention, globe thistle asks for almost nothing, just a sunny spot in well-drained soil. In return, it gives months of beauty and a bold statement that balances the softer, more delicate flowers around it. For anyone who loves easy care plants with dramatic flair, globe thistle is a must-have anchor in a cottage garden. 4. Sedums, stonecrop, Hylotaliphium, the pollinator feast. Few plants embody resilience like sedums, now more often called Hylotaliphium. These fleshy-leaved perennials thrive on neglect, shrugging off dry spells in poor soil while still putting on a dazzling show. Their blooms, often in shades of dusty pink, rose, or deep burgundy, appear in late summer just when the garden is beginning to tire. Pollinators can't resist them. Bees and butterflies gather in numbers, turning each cluster into a buzzing feast. One of the most beloved varieties, Autumn Joy, lights up the border with its changing colors, shifting from soft green to rich pink, then finally to bronze as fall deepens. Sedums also make excellent cut flowers, and even when left standing, their dried seed heads add winter interest, dusted with frost. Perhaps their greatest gift? They're endlessly generous. Break off a stem, stick it in soil, and before long it roots to become a new plant. For gardeners who love low-maintenance abundance, sedums are pure magic. 5. Foxgloves, the magical spires. Few flowers capture the storybook charm of a cottage garden quite like foxgloves. With their tall spires dotted in bell-shaped blooms, they bring vertical drama and a sense of enchantment, as if they belong in a fairy tale forest. Foxgloves are biennials, which means they grow foliage one year and flower the next. But they're such generous self-seeders that once you plant them, they often return year after year, choosing their own favorite spots. Bees adore crawling into their tubular flowers, making them a pollinator's delight. They thrive in partial shade, which makes them perfect for tucking beneath trees or along fences where other blooms may struggle. Their colors range from classic purple to creamy white and even soft apricot, creating a natural romantic palette. One caution though, foxgloves are highly toxic if ingested, so they aren't the best choice for gardens with curious children or pets. Still, for pure cottage garden atmosphere, foxgloves are truly unforgettable. 6. Daffodils, the cheerful spring heralds. When winter finally loosens its grip, nothing lifts the spirit quite like the first daffodils pushing through the soil. These golden trumpets are the ultimate signal that brighter days are ahead, and they've earned their place as a cottage garden essential. Daffodils are wonderfully easy care. Plant the bulbs once, and they'll reward you with blooms year after year, often multiplying into generous clumps over time. They're also incredibly hardy, thriving in cold climates where other flowers hesitate. Beyond their beauty, daffodils provide vital early nectar for pollinators, offering bees a much-needed food source when little else is in bloom. They look stunning when naturalized in drifts across a lawn. But remember, once the flowers fade, you'll need to leave the foliage for about 6 weeks so the bulbs can recharge for the next season. It's a small price to pay for their annual burst of sunshine, a cheerful welcome every spring that feels like a gift from nature itself. 7. Honeysuckle, the fragrant climber with a warning. No cottage garden feels complete without the sweet, heady fragrance of honeysuckle drifting through the air on a summer evening. This vigorous climber twines its way over fences, trellises, or even up old trees, covering them in cascades of tubular blooms loved by bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. Its scent alone can stop you in your tracks, creating that romantic, timeless atmosphere gardeners dream of. But while honeysuckle is a classic, it comes with a word of caution. Some species, particularly certain Asian varieties, can become invasive in regions like North America. Always check your local recommendations before planting. Another thing to keep in mind is its growth habit. Some honeysuckles are extremely vigorous and will need regular pruning to keep them from taking over. Choose the right variety, however, and you'll have a faithful companion that rewards you year after year with fragrance, flowers, and wildlife visitors. Honeysuckle is a reminder that even the most enchanting plants ask us to balance beauty with responsibility. 8. Roses, the heart of cottage charm. When people imagine a cottage garden, roses are almost always the first flower that comes to mind. Their timeless beauty, intoxicating fragrance, and sheer variety make them the soul of any romantic garden. From wild, single-petaled dog roses to full, ruffled English blooms, there's a rose for every taste and climate. While some gardeners shy away from roses because of their reputation for being high maintenance, the truth is that many varieties are surprisingly resilient, especially if you're willing to embrace a slightly wilder look rather than chasing perfection. Single and semi-double roses in particular are not only easier to care for but also far more beneficial to pollinators than tightly packed hybrids. Pairing roses with companion plants like salvias or catmint can even help reduce issues such as black spot. Yes, they'll appreciate a bit of feeding and pruning, but the reward is months of blooms and fragrance that simply can't be replicated. In every sense, roses are the beating heart of the cottage garden dream. Part 3. Fragrant friends for romance and pollinators. A cottage garden isn't just about color, it's about fragrance that lingers in the air and invites life into your space. These plants charm not only the eye, but also the senses, drawing in bees, butterflies, and even hummingbirds. They're the soul of romance in the garden, turning every stroll into a sensory experience. 9. Lavender, the evergreen favorite. Few plants capture the romance of a summer garden like lavender. With its silvery green foliage and upright spikes of purple blooms, it offers beauty, fragrance, and resilience all in one. Lavender thrives in sunny, well-drained soil, making it a perfect choice for gardeners in drier regions or anyone who struggles with plants that dislike wet feet. Once established, it asks for very little, just an annual trim to keep its shape. Its flowers are a magnet for bees and butterflies, while the dried stems can be bundled into sachets, wreaths, or teas. Unlike many cottage plants, lavender also gives structure year-round. Even in winter, its mounded foliage provides texture and form. Plant it along pathways where brushing against it releases its soothing scent, or use it as a low hedge to frame your borders. Beyond its beauty, lavender brings calm, a living reminder that the garden is not just for the eyes, but also for the soul. 10. Sweet peas, the daily companion. Sweet peas are the flowers of pure delight, delicate petals in pastel shades, spilling fragrance that can perfume an entire corner of the garden. They embody everything we love about cottage gardens: beauty, romance, and abundance. But here's the truth every gardener should know. Sweet peas do ask for attention. To keep them blooming, you'll need to deadhead regularly, guiding their vines up supports and protecting them from slugs that find their young shoots irresistible. Yet the rewards far outweigh the effort. Few flowers produce so many blooms for cutting, and bringing a vase of freshly picked sweet peas indoors is like bottling summer itself. They thrive in cool weather and love rich, well-drained soil, so starting them early gives the best display. Sweet peas remind us that some beauty is fleeting and requires care, but in return they give us one of the most unforgettable scents in the garden, a fragrance so sweet it lingers in memory long after the petals fade. 11. Lupins, the vibrant spikes of color. Lupins are the showstoppers of a cottage garden, sending up bold spires packed with flowers in shades that range from soft pastels to fiery reds and deep purples. They create instant drama, drawing the eye upward and breaking up the flow of lower-growing plants. Gardeners love them for their ability to transform a border into something striking almost overnight. But while their beauty is undeniable, lupins do require little extra care. Slugs and snails find their tender shoots irresistible, so some protection is often needed in spring. Most varieties are treated as short-lived perennials or even annuals, meaning they may not return reliably each year. Still, the payoff is worth it. Their nitrogen-fixing roots enrich the soil, and their flowers are adored by bees. With good care in the right spot, lupins reward you with breathtaking towers of color that feel like a celebration of summer itself. They remind us that a little effort can yield truly spectacular rewards. 12. Delphiniums, the towers of blue and purple. If lupins are bold, then delphiniums are downright majestic. These towering spikes of cobalt blue, violet, or snowy white rise above the garden like living exclamation marks, instantly adding grandeur to any border. In traditional cottage gardens, delphiniums were often the pride of place, grown for their stately height and dramatic impact. Yet as breathtaking as they come with a reputation for being demanding. They crave rich soil, regular feeding, and protection from strong winds that can topple their tall stems. Slugs also adore their tender shoots in spring, so vigilance is key. Many gardeners stake them early to keep those towers upright, and after flowering, cutting them back often brings a second flush later in the season. Though they require more care than many easygoing cottage flowers, the sight of a delphinium in full bloom is unforgettable, a towering masterpiece that rewards dedication with pure splendor. They're proof that sometimes a little hard work yields magical beauty. Part 4. Bold blooms with drama, but some work attached. Every cottage garden needs a few stars that steal the show, flowers so striking they stop visitors in their tracks. These blooms deliver unforgettable drama, but they often ask for a little more effort in return. Think of them as the divas of the garden, dazzling, demanding, and absolutely worth it. 13. Tulips, beautiful but temporary. Tulips bring a burst of brilliance to spring, unfurling in every shade imaginable, from soft pastels to fiery oranges and velvety purples. They're often the highlight of early cottage gardens, creating dramatic swaths of color after the long gray of winter. But tulips are also known for being somewhat short-lived. While they shine their brightest in the first year after planting, many varieties weaken or disappear in subsequent seasons, unlike daffodils that reliably return. This means most gardeners treat tulips as annuals, replanting each autumn for the best show. Still, their fleeting nature is part of their magic, like a festival that only comes once a year. For best results, plant tulips in generous clusters rather than scattering them, and choose varieties suited to your climate. Even when they fade, the memory of their glowing petals lingers. Tulips remind us that some beauty is precious precisely because it doesn't last forever, making their short-lived brilliance all the more treasured. 4. Hydrangeas, 6 months of drama. Hydrangeas are the quiet giants of the cottage garden, beloved for their long-lasting blooms that can carry a garden from midsummer well into winter. Their large clusters of flowers, whether the rounded mop heads or the lacy, delicate lace caps, bring bold texture and color, ranging from soft blues and pinks to creamy whites and even deep burgundy shades. Unlike many plants that fade quickly, hydrangea blossoms slowly age with grace, turning papery and bronze, and often remaining beautiful even after frost. They're easy to care for, needing little more than an annual prune and some basic feeding. While mophead hydrangeas aren't pollinator-friendly, other varieties provide nectar and habitat, ensuring wildlife still benefits. Hydrangeas thrive in partial shade, making them perfect for softening the corners of a garden or adding depth to shady spots where other flowers might struggle. For gardeners who crave drama without constant maintenance, hydrangeas are the faithful companions that deliver beauty season after season. 15. Poppies, the resilient storytellers. Poppies are more than just flowers. They're symbols of resilience and remembrance, returning wherever the soil has been disturbed. Their papery petals in scarlet, pink, purple, or white bring bursts of color that feel both delicate and powerful at once. In cottage gardens, poppies often appear as if by magic, self-seeding year after year in unexpected corners. They thrive on neglect, needing little more than a patch of sun and soil to put on their dazzling show. Pollinators adore them. It's not uncommon to find several bees nestled together inside a single bloom. Annual poppies complete their life cycle in one season, while perennial types can come back each year with little care. Gardeners often plant them alongside grasses or perennials for a natural, wild look that perfectly embodies the spirit of a cottage garden. Though their flowers last only a few fleeting days, their ability to return and surprise us makes them timeless storytellers of renewal and hope. 16. Cosmos, the effortless dancers. Cosmos are the carefree spirits of the cottage garden, airy, delicate, and endlessly cheerful. Their fern-like foliage and daisy-like blooms sway gently in the breeze, giving borders a light, dancing movement that feels alive. Available in whites, pinks, yellows, and even rich burgundies, cosmos are perfect for filling gaps with effortless color. They thrive in full sun, prefer poor to average soil, and ask for very little beyond regular deadheading to keep the blooms coming. In fact, the more you pick them for bouquets, the more they reward you with fresh flowers right up until the first frost. They also attract butterflies and bees, ensuring your garden hums with life throughout the season. Easy to grow from seed, cosmos are ideal for beginners or busy gardeners who crave beauty without fuss. Their charm lies not only in their simplicity, but in the joy they bring, fluttering like little dancers and reminding us that gardens are meant to be playful. Part 5, Wildflower Spirit, Self-Starters and Free Spirits. Some flowers don't wait for permission. They spring up on their own, scattering seeds and weaving themselves into the fabric of your garden. These self-starters bring surprise, resilience, and a natural, untamed charm. They're the storytellers of a cottage garden, thriving with little care yet giving so much back. 17. Cleome, the summer gap filler. Cleome, often called spider flower, is one of those plants that knows how to make a statement. With tall stems topped by airy clusters of violet, pink, or white blooms, it adds height and drama without overwhelming its neighbors. Cleome is especially valuable in midsummer, when other flowers may begin to tire. It simply keeps stretching upward, producing new blossoms without demanding much from you. Unlike many annuals, it doesn't need constant deadheading. Its blooms naturally keep coming until frost. Pollinators adore it, especially bees and butterflies, so planting a patch ensures your garden stays lively. Cleome also has a slightly exotic, whimsical look, making it a wonderful choice for filling large spaces with color and movement. It thrives in full sun and average soil, showing resilience even in hotter, drier spots. For cottage gardeners who love plants that feel both wild and generous, Cleome is the perfect reminder that beauty often comes from the simplest care. 18. Verbena bonariensis, the see-through star. Verbena bonariensis is the master of lightness and air. With its tall, slender stems topped by clusters of tiny violet blooms, it creates height without blocking the view of plants behind it. This see-through quality makes it perfect for weaving through borders, adding vertical drama while keeping the garden open and flowing. A favorite among pollinators, it hums with bees and butterflies all summer long, and in autumn its seed heads become a feast for birds. Even when the flowers fade, the skeletal forms stand elegantly through winter, catching frost and adding sculptural beauty. Though technically a short-lived perennial, Verbena bonariensis self-seeds generously, often reappearing in surprising spots year after year. It thrives in sunny positions with well-drained soil and requires little maintenance beyond cutting back old stems in spring. For gardeners who crave effortless elegance and long seasons of interest, Verbena is a true star, graceful, generous, and full of quiet charm. 19. Bee balm, Monarda the hummingbird magnet. Bee balm, or Monarda, is one of those plants that feels both wild and welcoming. With its shaggy, firework-like blooms in shades of red, pink, purple, or white, it draws instant attention to the border. But the real magic lies in its ability to attract life. Bees swarm its blossoms, butterflies flit between flowers, and hummingbirds dart in to sip the nectar. Beyond its ornamental charm, bee balm has a long history in herbal traditions, once used for teas and natural remedies. It's resilient too, tolerating a range of soils and even standing strong against deer. While slugs may nibble the leaves, they rarely cause lasting harm. Monarda prefers a sunny to partly shaded spot and rewards gardeners with weeks of summer color and fragrance. Left to spread, it will form generous clumps that can be divided every few years, giving you even more plants to share. For any cottage garden, bee balm is a lively, spirited friend that never fails to delight. 20. Alströmerias, the florist's secret-turned-cottage gem. Once known mainly as a florist's favorite, Alströmerias, sometimes called Peruvian lilies, are finding their place in cottage gardens. And it's easy to see why. Their blooms come in vibrant shades of pink, orange, yellow, and purple, often streaked with delicate markings that give them a painterly look. Long-lasting in the garden and in vases, they provide color for weeks on end, making them a practical as well as beautiful choice. Alstromerias are also surprisingly easy to grow. They prefer a sunny or lightly shaded spot and will reward you with repeat flowering if you harvest correctly. Instead of cutting stems, you gently pull them from the base, just like pulling rhubarb, which encourages the plant to produce more. Once established, they're hardy and reliable, filling gaps in the border with cheerful blooms that look as though they've been scattered by an artist's brush. For cottage gardeners who love beauty that doubles as bounty, Alstromerias are a perfect addition. 21. Salvias, color that lasts. Salvias are the unsung heroes of the cottage garden, long-blooming, vibrant, and adaptable. With flowers in shades of purple, red, blue, and pink, they weave waves of color that last from early summer well into autumn. Unlike fussier plants, salvias are remarkably low maintenance once established, thriving in full sun and well-drained soil. Their nectar-rich blossoms are irresistible to bees, butterflies, and even hummingbirds, turning every planting into a lively pollinator hub. Many varieties also release a subtle, herbal fragrance when brushed against, adding another sensory layer to the garden. Salvias pair beautifully with roses, often helping reduce common rose ailments like black spot, making them excellent companions in mixed borders. Some types are hardy perennials, while others act more like annuals in cooler climates. But even then, their season of bloom is generous enough to be worth replanting. For gardeners craving bold color and resilience without constant fuss, salvias deliver year after year with grace and joy. Part 6. Shrubs, trees, and anchors of the cottage garden. Every cottage garden needs anchors, plants that provide structure, shade, and a sense of permanence. Shrubs and trees ground the garden, offering year-round interest while supporting blossoms that come and go. From flowering shrubs to fruit trees, these are the elements that turn a patchwork of flowers into a lasting sanctuary. 22. Fruit trees, the cottage soul. No cottage garden feels truly whole without a fruit tree standing proudly at its heart. Whether it's the frothy spring blossoms of a crabapple, the golden orbs of a quince, or the deep, mysterious fruits of a mulberry, these trees embody the spirit of giving. They offer shade in summer, structure in winter, and harvests that connect us directly to the rhythms of the seasons. In spring, they become magnets for pollinators, buzzing with life as their blooms open. By autumn, their fruits feed not only people, but also birds and wildlife, making them invaluable for biodiversity. Many traditional cottage gardens grew fruit trees, not just for beauty, but for survival, jellies, preserves, and fresh fruit for the table. Today, they carry that same charm, blending usefulness with romance. Plant one and you plant a legacy, something that matures and deepens with time, offering beauty and bounty for generations. Fruit trees are quite simply the soul of the cottage garden. 23. Crabapple, the blooming provider. Among fruit trees, the crabapple holds a special place in cottage gardens. In spring, its branches explode with blossoms, clouds of pink or white that fill the air with sweetness and draw pollinators from far and wide. By late summer and autumn, those blossoms transform into clusters of small, jewel-like fruits. While too tart to eat raw, they're perfect for making jellies, chutneys, or even adding a splash of color to wreaths and seasonal displays. Birds adore them too, turning the tree into a lively feeding station as the days grow colder. What makes crabapples so valuable is their ability to provide year-round interest. Flowers in spring, fruits in fall, and striking silhouettes in winter. They're hardy, easy to grow, and adaptable to many soils, making them ideal for both beginner and seasoned gardeners. Plant a crabapple and you invite beauty, wildlife, and tradition into your garden, all wrapped in one small but mighty tree. 24. Quince, the forgotten treasure. Quince trees are one of the hidden jewels of cottage gardening, less common than apples or pears, yet filled with old-world charm. In spring, they grace the garden with soft pink blossoms, offering the same delicate beauty as their more famous cousins. By autumn, their fruits ripen into golden orbs, filling the air with a fragrance that's both floral and spicy. Unlike other fruits, quinces are rarely eaten raw. Instead, they're transformed into buns, jellies, or baked treats with a flavor that feels both exotic and nostalgic. Beyond their culinary gifts, Quinces are remarkably hardy and tolerant of different soils, making them a reliable choice for gardeners seeking both beauty and utility. Their gnarled branches also add winter character, giving structure even when the garden sleeps. Planting a quince connects you to centuries of tradition, when cottage gardeners prized every plant for its usefulness as well as its beauty. A true treasure, quince deserves a revival in modern gardens. 25. Mulberry, the storyteller's tree. Mulberries are trees steeped in folklore, music, and history, making them a perfect fit for a cottage garden that values tradition as much as beauty. In spring, they leaf out with a soft, fresh green, offering shade and shelter. By early summer, their branches bend with sweet, dark fruits, berries that can be eaten fresh, baked into pies, or turned into rich preserves. Birds love them just as much, so you may find yourself sharing the harvest with your feathered neighbors. Mulberries are resilient trees, tolerant of different soils, and surprisingly low maintenance once established. Their irregular, sometimes twisted branches also give them a characterful silhouette that stands proudly in winter, telling stories even when bare. Historically, mulberries were planted in cottage gardens not only for their fruit, but also for their symbolism of abundance and endurance. To grow one today is to bring a living piece of history into your garden, an anchor tree that nourishes, shelters, and inspires. Creating your own cottage garden dream. And there you have it, 25 of the very best cottage garden flowers and plants, each one with its own personality, history, and way of bringing magic into your space. From the easygoing survivors like hardy geraniums and sedums, to the fragrant companions like lavender and honeysuckle, to the dramatic showstoppers like delphiniums and lupins, every choice you make adds another brushstroke to your personal canvas. What makes a cottage garden so special isn't perfection. It's the grind of abundance, the surprises of self-seeding blooms, and the harmony of beauty and usefulness growing side by side. Remember, you don't need to plant all 25 at once. Start with just a handful that call out to you, perhaps daffodils to brighten the spring, roses to perfume the summer, and a fruit tree to anchor the seasons. Over time, these plants will grow, mingle, and weave themselves into something that feels uniquely yours. That's the essence of cottage gardening, a space that grows with you, reflects your personality, and offers comfort in every season. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these flowers captured your imagination today? Are you drawn to the effortless charm of cosmos, the nostalgic magic of foxgloves, or maybe the heritage of a quince or mulberry tree? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you're planning for your own garden. If you enjoyed this journey through the best cottage garden flowers, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Earthly Delights, and ring the bell so you never miss more green inspiration. Together, we'll keep discovering plants, stories, and garden wisdom that bring joy and beauty into our lives. Until next time, may your garden always feel like home.